All right, this video idea started because I read about this insider that got paid to leak information out of CrowdStrike, which is a big deal. CrowdStrike being, security vendor that a giant percentage of the world relies on, whether you realize it or not, as evident by them last year, like pushing a bad update, and all of a sudden, none of us could fly. All the airlines were grounded due to a bunch of blue screens of death everywhere. If I paid a YouTube editor or anything, this would be like blue screen of death, B-roll of, oh, no one could fly in Delta. But now, okay, they've got an insider that got paid not that much money to pass information to hackers. And we're getting a lot of this information out of Telegram channels from the cybercrime syndicate known as Scattered, Lapsus, Hunters, Shiny, Lapsus, whatever. They keep changing their names. But we've got screenshots of their Telegram basically advertising that they will pay for insider access. What they're looking for is you give them your SSO token. This is the thing that they are famous for being very good at phishing. I ran incident response on this group or some previous iteration of this group, texting a bunch of employees that worked at the job that I worked at, and a few of them fell for this SMS phishing campaign. Well, why go through all the trouble of phishing people when there's all sorts of protection against phishing, and we're educating people about phishing, and there's like two-factor auth and all these kinds of things that they got to worry about and get around, when you could just offer somebody $25,000 to pass over their SSO token. This person is fired and definitely going to jail. And $25,000 just does not seem like the price that I would, want to do that for. But here you go. You got screenshots coming out of CrowdStrike, apparently, right? Here's their Okta tiles of, what would happen if you were an employee logged in at CrowdStrike. And here's like some internal resource screen grabs that they are passing around. At first, the hackers said that this was part of this Salesforce breach. And see, this video is going to go off the rails here. I wanted to talk about insider threat and how 25K is not that much for this insider threat. And we all have to be seriously worried about this. But I think we're going to wind up talking a lot about this Salesforce stuff too. So let me get there. And I'll explain this in a sec. But the hackers said they used information stolen from this Gainsight breach to break into CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike said, nope, that's not true. By the way, we just fired this insider because we figured out where those pictures came from. And then we, gathered some evidence that someone shared those pictures externally out of the company, fired them. Our systems were never compromised. Our customers remain protected throughout. We have turned the case over to law enforcement at this point. Again, not worth $25,000. But this Gainsight thing, maybe this wasn't involved in CrowdStrike. Maybe that was a head fake by the group, but this Gainsight thing is definitely happening. If we go over to Bleeping Computer, that was TechCrunch that I was just sharing. I'll put all the links down below. If we go over to Bleeping Computer, they kind of tell some of the same story, but they reached out and tried to talk to CrowdStrike about a lot of this. There's some additional details in this article, right? That we got those pictures out of the insider. Then they've said that the threat actors ultimately did receive SSO authentication cookies from that insider, but by then they'd been caught by CrowdStrike and fired and shut down from the network access. So this is where the whole hey, they never actually compromised the system, customers were safe type stuff lands. Some more information. The extortion group added that they also attempted to purchase CrowdStrike reports on Shiny Hunters and Scattered Spider, because CrowdStrike does track these people. I mean, I think that's where the name Scattered Spider comes from. They don't call themselves Scattered Spider. They call themselves the Com, or there's all these other subgroups and like this whole Telegram thing going on with, Shiny, Scattered, Lapsus or whatever, right? But Scattered Spider was the name that CrowdStrike called them. So they are out there trying to get whatever information that CrowdStrike has on them, because why not? But then the whole second half of this bleeping article talks about this crazy Salesforce hacking wave that's going on. We've covered a lot of these breaches, either on these long videos that I do or on my shorts, over on Instagram or YouTube Shorts, where they used to do a lot of SMS phishing. Then they moved over to voice phishing attacks, and we covered a ton of these. They kind of went industry by industry. They were focusing on insurance for a little while. Then they went over to airlines. They took like 13 retailers out, a bunch of them in the UK. This was all their traditional phishing attacks. A lot of them were focused on targeting help desk employees, pretending to be employees and getting a password reset for an account that they obviously didn't know. They're also claiming responsibility for the Jaguar Land Rover breach, which took them offline for a very long time and is having crazy economic ripple effects. Like, this was almost like a too big to fail moment. The government was stepping in and keeping these people on life support while they got back online from a cyber attack. But then they moved from SMS phishing to voice phishing to this targeting Salesforce customers specifically tactic. And they're really attacking the whole Salesforce ecosystem. So this is another article on Bleeping. back in August. And again, we talked about this in some earlier videos, but Salesforce Drift was part of it. So it's not like they were hacking Salesforce. There was this tool, Salesforce Drift, that was very popular, that a lot of people used, and they were able to attack that Salesforce Drift part of the ecosystem, get into the customers of that Drift platform, and be able to actually steal information out of the Salesforce instances of people who use this whole Drift thing. When we were digging into this back in August, it turns out that people put a lot of information into Salesforce. Salesforce is, it's like a CRM type thing. You're supposed to like track the status of deals or whatever, but people use it for everything. So when these hackers got access to so many Salesforce accounts, they were able to find lots of sensitive information, specifically like API keys, OAuth tokens, passwords, whatever it was. People were putting into tickets or saving in notes on things. Now, fast forward to November. That was all in August. So that was all the Drift thing. Now we've got this other Salesforce ecosystem tool called Gainsight. So I'm going to read this quote directly. It's from their advisory. Salesforce has identified unusual activity involving the Gainsight published applications connected to Salesforce, which are installed and managed directly by the customers. Basically, hey, not us. Our investigation indicates this activity may have enabled unauthorized access to certain customers' Salesforce data through that app's connection. So this is just like Drift 2.0, but now with Gainsight. Upon detection of the activity, Salesforce revoked all active access and refresh tokens associated with Gainsight published applications connected to Salesforce and temporarily removed those applications from AppExchange while our investigation continues. All right, and really boiling down this threat actor group's whole MO is what they're after is OAuth tokens, whether it was SMS phishing, voice phishing, paying insiders, or these Salesforce things. The thing that they're looking for is the tokens, specifically tokens that let them into the SSO account, which then would let them into all of the SaaS accounts behind that SSO account. Turns out there's tons of data when you click on all those SaaS tiles once you get into Okta. This group used to be called Octopus for a little while because they were really, really going after Okta accounts. That's why I don't even try to like name them. It changes so much. And it's not like these guys wear a name badge. It's like, oh, I work for, Scattered Spider reporting for duty. Obviously, a ton of really big names here that are saying that they, might have been impacted in the Salesforce attack. To make it even more complicated, Gainsight is actually pointing at the Salesforce Drift breach as the origin for their breach. So Salesforce Drift got breached. Somewhere there was an OAuth token that was pointing to Gainsight. Gainsight, another Salesforce ecosystem thing, got access to, and then so on and so forth, this big cascading effect of Salesforce data filled with secrets, filled with tokens. A lot of the updates have come out and said, hey, we actually weren't impacted by this. I know I saw one for DocuSign. I see one for Palo Alto Networks. At no time were any Palo Alto Networks products or service impacted. So, I mean, the definition of impacted by this breach may be a little fuzzy, but a lot of people use this Gainsight tool and this Drift tool. There's tons of secrets floating around out there. Been clicking around on this. I go to this other article on Security Week that they say that there were only 3 organizations that have known to have been compromised from the Gainsight attack. So the reality is somewhere probably between 3 and that 285 number on the other article. And this is where this video kind of goes off the rails, right? Because I thought that I was going to make a quick video about insider threats and CrowdStrike being like, holy crap, if we can get insiders at CrowdStrike, the ripple effects that would have, thought that would be an interesting video. Then I'm just starting to think just in general, holy crap, look at what threat actors are doing and how they're behaving. So number one, you could have like the beefiest security product stack in the world, tons and tons of bells and whistles, and a phone call to the help desk just skirted around all of that. They were just handing out passwords. Literally, there's lawsuits against Cognizant, I think it was, right? This MSP that Clorox outsourced their help desk to, and they reviewed the call logs, and these people just didn't even try to verify the person on the other end of the line, and they were just handing out passwords. So that's like step one of just like going around everything is phishing. This is why, like, when I'm advising companies, security teams on building a security program, I say solve phishing, then worry about everything else. And this is like part of why, right? Because it just doesn't really matter if you're still, susceptible to someone opening an email or someone answering the phone and just handing over the keys to the kingdom. All right, then we've evolved and we said, well, why do we even do phishing? All right, so I've already sidestepped your entire security stack. I'm going phishing route, social engineering route. Why don't I sidestep that too? I can just get access to those OAuth tokens because you guys just put them into all these places that they shouldn't be. And I'm going to go this whole supply chain attack route, and I'm going to attack your third parties. And not even your third parties, your third party's third parties. So Salesforce would be a third party to me. I'm a company over here, right? I'm a Salesforce customer. They're my third party. Bunch of people on my team use Salesforce and put data in there that they shouldn't, including secrets, tokens, API keys, etc. Well, Salesforce didn't even get hacked. We've got some random third-party app that has all the permissions in Salesforce that then gets hacked. So now I'm not even getting hacked via my code, my network, my infrastructure, or my employees. I'm now getting hacked via my third party apps that have access to that same data. Then why even bother with any of that when I can write a $25,000 check in some random cryptocurrency, probably, to an insider and get the same freaking tokens? All right. So kudos to CrowdStrike here, because they've kind of proven the point that I make a lot when I talk about insider risks or insider threats. I was having a conversation a long time ago with my buddy Ryan Huber, who was the head of security at Slack at the time, and he said something that's been ringing around in my head for a decade since he said it to me. It was, a sufficiently sophisticated attacker will look indistinguishable from an insider. He also paired that, I think it was in the same conversation, where he said, and I have repeated that 1,000 times, a 0-day is not an invisibility cloak. The topic of conversation was around observability and how you have to watch the behaviors on your infrastructure. We were talking specifically about cloud accounts at the time. So you had to assume that either if it was a 0-day or if an insider's account was compromised, if they start acting strange and you're watching, it doesn't matter if they were compromised, if it was an insider, or if it was a 0-day. If you're watching, it shouldn't matter. CrowdStrike was obviously watching. They caught this employee before the threat actor was able to use the access that they were about to hand over to this hacker group. How many other companies are going to be as good at catching that insider as CrowdStrike was? How many companies read all these headlines this week and started to get really worried about the fact that they outsourced some critical part of their stack to maybe a country where $25,000 does really change someone's life and is worth risking some jail time and some serious law enforcement impact to accept. So I think we're entering a bit of a shift here. This is the actual shift in cybersecurity, not the AI shift, not the AI superpowered malware, whatever the heck is going on. This is the most prolific hacking group on the planet right now. A number of them have been put in jail and they're still incredibly active. And watching their behaviors should inform exactly what you are focused on and concerned about going into 2026. This isn't marketing. They don't care. They're just trying to get in. Every improvement we make, you see that they sidestep, and they have resources. They've been making tens of millions of dollars in ransomware attacks over the past couple of years, and their goal is to make more. So what are you going to do about it? If you're not seriously evaluating your third parties, your fourth parties, your help desk, if you outsourced it, your key insider risks, who in your org that could get a check for, maybe it's not $25,000, maybe it's $1 million, maybe it's $2 million, because they've got it. They can up this offer for the right person. If you haven't identified where those things are and your observability, could you see if one of those insiders got a check? Could you see what their behavior changed and what they did? And, are they giving their access to someone else outside of the org or feeding information outside of your org? If you're not already thinking about these kinds of things, it's time to start. I hope this is a bit of a wake-up call. What started as an insider threat video about CrowdStrike turned into, as I was reading, just, hey, attackers are going to come in and sidestep all the protections that you've built up over this time. They're going to sidestep them all to achieve their goal. If this was helpful, hit all the YouTube buttons down below. Thanks very much. Follow for more cybersecurity news.